I watch documentaries, okay, because there has been a standard set by, let's say, The Last Dance, right? Let's say many of the very good 30 for 30 documentaries, even all the way back to HBO Sports and those amazing documentaries. This one takes the cake in a sense that you might as well have made these people up and wrote them in to a drama that we now would watch on, I don't know, Hulu, right? Or we watch on HBO. You couldn't script a more wild cast than Jerry Jones, Jimmy Johnson, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman. By the way, there's so much stuff you learn and stuff you've forgotten that you're reminded of. I had no idea that Troy Aikman, legit, I knew he grew up in Oklahoma. I didn't know he grew up on a farm. I didn't know he grew up baling hay every morning for hours before he went to school. You know, he said his dad was the hardest working guy and the toughest guy pound for pound that he'd ever met. And then you get characters like Charles Haley, who, like, to his own admission, like, there's some mental health stuff, serious mental health stuff. Deion Sanders, Barry Switzer. They're panning Barry Switzer as they start the movie, and Switzer just throws up the middle finger. Like, and the documentary has this feel of a Western, right? And it lets you know early on, and it's Jerry Jones sold the rights to this documentary to Netflix and to Skydance, right? So it's not like he had final edit of this thing. Now, so far, it has been somewhat favorable to him. And it's a reminder, too, of that whole situation, right? When he bought the Dallas Cowboys, and it all was from a gamble. I mean, he literally, his last like $800,000 he put into an oil well in West Texas. And as he mentioned, it began to gush and spit oil, right? And when that well turned over, he came away with $100 million, and it changed his life. Another thing I think you have to give Jerry Jones credit for, and I know this from my own family, from now having a second family with Christy, just how important family is to people, right? And Jimmy Johnson was an example of, I mean, the guy wanted to win so bad. I mean, probably there was other stuff going on at home, but I mean, the quote is in the show, you know, he left his wife. He was done with his kids. That's what the quote was. I think it was Nate Newton that said it, because he wanted to focus 100% on winning, right? Which is like a real weird way to live. And I think Jimmy Johnson, as he's softened and has gotten older, would completely agree that was not, maybe that was necessary for the time, but that's not who he is today. Jerry Jones kind of had the answers to the test in a sense that I'm the owner of this team. It's a Dr. Jim Buss type thing with the Lakers. I know that this is going to consume 100% of my time. So guess what? My kids are going to be in it with me, like legit in it with me. And oh, by the way, Jerry Jones began a terrible trend, but he began it, right? Dale Hansen is on the record on this documentary talking about the fact that he was going to be general manager and president. No one had ever heard of that before, right? And it was really like an amazing situation where he told Tex Schramm at the press conference, like, I'm coming for your job. I mean, of course he was. He could fire him. A couple other things I wrote down about this first episode that is really, really exciting. Okay. I got a couple other things I wanted to hit on. The Troy Aikman, Steve Berline controversy. I remembered this, but I was reminded, there was a point in time where Troy Aikman had played a lot of really good football. And this is 1991. The Cowboys are finally trying to turn it around and are turning it around. Troy goes down with an injury, and Steve Berline comes in and takes the Cowboys to the playoffs. And he wins the wild card game at Chicago. They go to Detroit, to the Silverdome, and they get blasted. And Troy Aikman literally calls Lee Steinberg and is like, I want you to start looking for places where I can go. Like, I want out of here. And Jerry, right, and this is something he doesn't get enough credit for, And Jimmy does not dispute this. Of all the stuff he does dispute, and those guys go back and forth. Jerry said to Jimmy Johnson after that game, like, yo, dude, the bullshit's over with. Troy Aikman's our quarterback. Like, so you can tell Steve Berline to kick rocks. Like, no more Steve Walsh's, who, by the way, Steve Walsh will be on the Pete Sousa show on Friday, taking you down memory lane, talking Notre Dame and Miami. And I'll ask him about the Dallas Cowboys and his experience there. Because if you remember, after Jimmy Jones, and I'll talk one more thing about this documentary that blew me away. After Jimmy Johnson drafted Troy Aikman with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, he drafted Steve Berline with their first pick in the supplemental draft, which meant if you drafted in the supplemental draft, remember the Cowboys were horrible. If you drafted in the supplemental draft, you surrender your first round pick, which became a number 1 pick because the Cowboys sucked. So Jimmy Johnson brings Steve Walsh to town. By the way, nitpick, they didn't get into that in the documentary. Was a little bummed. And they didn't go anywhere near as deep as they could have with the desperate situation that had taken over Dallas, Texas after JFK was assassinated there, and how the Cowboys really led them out of that. They touched on it, but they didn't get into it too much. And by the way, Tom Landry, another guy from Central Casting, the steel jaw, right? God-fearing man. I mean, they talk about it, was a regular attendee at Highland Park Baptist Church, right? Like, nobody perfect to lead the Dallas Cowboys in the Bible Belt. As you can see, I was overwhelmed with this documentary, and I will say right now, Scotty, Prisoner Pete has arrived. It's the best documentary I have ever seen. And let me explain this to you, okay? I don't care if you, and I think most people do like it, but if it's not for you, you're missing it. Or you just didn't grow up as a complete sports nerd in the 80s and 90s. That's all I did was watch sports, read about sports, play sports, little video games, but not much, right? And this Cowboys thing was one of the most fascinating stories and real life situations I'd ever seen play out at the time as a kid. And to be able to witness it in documentary form, I just say thank you. Thank you to Jerry Jones for turning the rights over to Netflix. And so here we are. By the way, Jerry's done it again. Like, he's like, over here, look over here. Forget about the fact that we suck. And I'm telling you, it's working. People are like, Mosley's going to be on with us in 7 minutes, and he is going to tell us how much he loves this documentary. I can guarantee it. And I think Werder would say it. I know Clarence Hill has already tweeted about it. Guys like Dale Hansen have. I mean, it is amazing. So go ahead and watch it if you haven't already. Quick